Once upon a time, there was a man who was deeply troubled by his own shadow and disgusted by his footprints. He saw his shadow as a weakness that followed him everywhere, and his footprints as embarrassing proof of his imperfections. Consumed by the idea of ridding himself of these flaws, he began to run, trying to escape his shadow and erase his tracks. But the faster he ran, the more footprints he left behind. The harder he tried to outrun his shadow, the more stubbornly it clung to him. Thinking he wasn't fast enough, he ran faster and faster, never stopping to rest. His breathing became labored, his legs burned, but still he pushed on, convinced that if he could just run a little faster, a little longer, he could finally leave his imperfections behind. Eventually, his strength gave out completely. He collapsed and died from exhaustion, never having escaped what he was running from. The tragic irony is that he never understood something beautifully simple. If he had just sat down peacefully in the shade, his shadow would have disappeared. This parable is a tale from the Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi about a man who became so obsessed with his own imperfections that he literally ran himself to death, trying to escape them, and we can all relate to him. There's a war happening inside you right now. It's been raging for years, maybe decades. It's the war against your weaknesses. You wake up, and the battle begins. You fight against your tendency to procrastinate. You resist your need for approval. You push down your sensitivity. You mask your fears. You pretend your anxieties don't exist. We've been taught that strength means having no flaws, that growth means fixing what's broken, that wisdom means overcoming our limitations. But what if everything we've learned about dealing with our weaknesses is wrong? What if the very act of fighting them is what gives them power? Here lies something that goes against everything our achievement-obsessed culture teaches us. Let me ask you something. When did you first learn that you weren't enough? Maybe it was in school, when your teacher circled your mistakes in red ink. Maybe it was when your parents praised your siblings' achievements while yours went unnoticed. Maybe it was when friends laughed at something you said, and you learned to stay quiet. Somewhere along the way, you developed a list, a mental inventory of everything that needed fixing. Your impatience, your overthinking, your need for reassurance, your difficulty saying no, your tendency to worry, and then you did what we're all taught to do. You went to war, you bought self-help books, you made resolutions, you created habits to override your nature, you pushed harder, trying to become someone else, someone better, someone without these messy, inconvenient parts. But here's what nobody tells you about this approach. The more you fight your weaknesses, the stronger they become. This isn't failure on your part. It's not lack of willpower. It's the fundamental misunderstanding of how transformation actually works. Lao Tzu watched water flow around rocks, bend around obstacles, and gradually carve the hardest stone into smooth surfaces. He noticed something profound. Water never fights the rock. It doesn't push against it with force. It doesn't try to be harder than stone. Instead, it flows. It adapts. It persists with consistency. And eventually, the water wins. What if your weaknesses are like the rock in the stream? What if fighting them only creates turbulence, while flowing with them creates transformation? Think about your most persistent struggle, the thing you've been trying to fix for years. How much energy have you spent battling it? How much guilt have you felt when it reappears? How much of your life has been consumed by this internal war? The Taoist masters understood something we've forgotten. They knew that what we call weakness often contains its own medicine, that our struggles often point toward our gifts, that our limitations often reveal our humanity. Your sensitivity isn't something to overcome. It's your capacity for empathy. Your overthinking isn't a flaw. It's your mind processing complexity. Your need for approval isn't weakness. It's your desire for connection. But you've been taught to see these as problems to solve, rather than parts of yourself to understand. Let me tell you about water's secret. Water is the softest element, yet it can move mountains. It has no fixed shape, yet it always finds its way. It doesn't resist obstacles, it transforms them. When water meets a wall, it doesn't attack. It pools, it waits. It finds the smallest crack and flows through. Over time, drop by drop, it expands that crack until the wall crumbles. This is the nature of gentle persistence. This is how real change happens. Your weaknesses are not walls to break down. They're terrain to navigate. And like water, you can learn to flow with them instead of fighting them. I want you to imagine someone you love deeply. Maybe it's your child, your partner, a dear friend. Now imagine they came to you sharing their deepest insecurity, their most persistent struggle. Would you tell them to fight it, to overcome it, to be stronger? Or would you listen with compassion? Would you help them understand it? Would you remind them that this struggle doesn't define their worth? Now, I want you to notice something. The voice in your head that criticizes your weaknesses, is it your voice? Or is it an echo of someone else's expectations? Most of our self-judgment isn't actually ours. It's internalized criticism from parents, teachers, society, media. We've learned to be harsh with ourselves because harshness was modeled for us. But harshness isn't wisdom. Force isn't strength. Fighting yourself isn't growth. Here's what the Taoists discovered. When you stop fighting your nature, you create space for understanding. When you stop judging your struggles, you create room for compassion. When you stop trying to be perfect, you start becoming whole. This doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean giving up on growth. It means growing in harmony with your nature instead of against it. Think of a tree. Does it fight its shape as it grows? Does it judge its bent branches or its seasonal cycles? It grows authentically, responding to sun and wind and rain, becoming more itself with each passing season. You can learn to grow the same way. So how do we actually do this? How do we stop the war against ourselves? It begins with what the Taoists call soft eyes, seeing without judgment, observing without criticism. The next time you notice one of your patterns, try something different. Instead of immediately jumping to, I need to fix this, try placing your hand on your heart and taking a gentle breath. Feel the rhythm of your heartbeat. Notice that you're alive, that you're human, that you're experiencing something real. When you catch yourself people-pleasing, breathe and acknowledge, here's my caring heart at work. When you notice yourself overthinking, breathe and recognize, here's my thoughtful mind processing. When you feel that familiar anxiety, breathe and honor, here's my protective instinct showing up. This simple shift creates space. It moves you from reaction to recognition, from judgment to gentle awareness. It transforms criticism into curiosity. Now let's go deeper. Ask yourself, what is this pattern trying to protect me from? Your people-pleasing might be protecting you from rejection. Your overthinking might be protecting you from making mistakes. Your anxiety might be protecting you from uncertainty. These patterns developed for a reason. They were adaptive responses to challenging situations. They helped you survive. And while they might not serve you now, they deserve recognition, not ridicule. Thank them. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I see you. I understand why you're here. This isn't about eliminating these patterns. It's about transforming your relationship with them. Here's a practice I want you to try. It's inspired by ancient Taoist meditation, but simplified for daily life. Find a quiet moment. Place your hand on your heart. Take 3 deep breaths. Now bring to mind one of your persistent struggles. Instead of trying to solve it or fight it, just breathe with it. Let it be there. Notice what it feels like in your body. Notice what emotions arise. Don't try to change anything. Just be present with this part of yourself. You might notice resistance. Your mind might say, "This is pointless," or "I should be doing something productive." That's normal. Just breathe with that too. After a few minutes, speak to this struggle as you would speak to a child who's afraid, with gentleness, with understanding. Maybe something like, "I see you. I know you're trying to help. We're going to figure this out together." This isn't just a technique. It's a complete shift in how you relate to your inner world. There's something beautiful that happens when you stop fighting yourself. You discover that your so-called weaknesses often contain unexpected gifts. Your sensitivity becomes attunement to others' needs. Your perfectionism becomes attention to detail. Your anxiety becomes conscientiousness. Your intensity becomes passion. These qualities don't disappear. They transform. Like water shaping rock, gentle acceptance shapes what seemed unchangeable. But this transformation can't be forced. It happens naturally when you create the right conditions, when you stop criticizing and start understanding, when you stop pushing and start allowing. So how do you live this way? How do you remember to be water instead of trying to be stone? Start small. Choose one pattern you've been fighting and try a different approach for just 1 week. Instead of judging it when it appears, greet it like an old friend. "Oh, there you are again. What do you need me to know today?" Instead of trying to eliminate it, get curious about it. When do you show up? What triggers you? What are you afraid might happen if you weren't here? Instead of seeing it as a failure, see it as information. What is this telling me about what I value, what I need, what I care about? Keep a small notebook. When you notice these patterns, write them down, not to catalog your failures, but to understand your humanity. I noticed I said yes when I wanted to say no. I think I was afraid of disappointing them. I caught myself comparing my life to someone else's social media. I think I was feeling insecure about my own path. I felt that familiar anxiety about the future. I think I was trying to control something uncontrollable. We began the episode talking about a war, the war against ourselves, the exhausting battle to fix what we think is broken, to improve what we believe is insufficient. But what if nothing was ever broken? What if you were never insufficient? What if the goal isn't to become someone else, but to become more fully yourself? The Taoist has a concept called Pu, or the uncarved block. It represents our original nature before the world told us who we should be, before we learned to judge ourselves, before we started fighting who we are. You don't need to carve yourself into something perfect. You don't need to eliminate your humanity to find your worth. You are already the uncarved block, whole, incomplete, perfect in your imperfection. The path forward isn't about adding more to yourself. It's about removing what never belonged to you in the first place. The harsh judgments, the impossible standards, the voice that says you're not enough. So today, I invite you to lay down your weapons in the war against yourself. Meet your struggles with curiosity instead of criticism. Greet your weaknesses with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. Remember, the goal isn't to become perfect. It's to become whole. And wholeness includes everything: the light and the shadow, the strength and the struggle, the beautiful and the broken. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a human being to be understood. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Be patient with your process. And remember, like water, your gentleness contains immense power.